Oh, maybe this is it. I think it might be logged into Kelly's Gmail account.
Ruh-roh. Like, who's this email from Sergio? Who is Sergio?
Who is Sergio? He says he's a pool boy. I don't have a pool.
Hi, and welcome to Seriously Pointless Conversations about Culture, your Seriously Pointless podcast about all your nerdy and geek things across time and Windows 98, James.
Hey, don't be hating on Windows 98.
Hey.
It was way better than the hot garbage that 95 was.
It's true, but, it's like I said, it's nowhere near as good as XP or Windows 2000, James.
XP was the shit.
It was. There's a reason why I'm pretty sure there are some computers that still run XP, even though they don't support it anymore.
I mean, I didn't upgrade past XP for a long time. Put it that way.
It's not
2000
wrong.
was okay. The Windows, like the Millennium Edition, was hot garbage.
That was, yeah, I remember that.
And we all just waited.
We waited a long time, and the only reason I have Windows, the newest one, whatever the heck that's called, I think is it 20?
The 20. What were they calling it?
2020.
I think it was Windows 2007 was the next one after the Millennium one, wasn't it?
Yeah, but there's the newest, brand newest one they came out with. It was literally like, hey, we've noticed you bought Windows 2000 or whatever it was. The previous one.
They changed models. They're not doing like versions anymore. They're doing like subscription service is what they're trying to push.
Yeah, which kind of annoyed me. But they're like, they basically said, hey, you have the old one, but you have a key for the old version. Here, we'll just let you upgrade for free. And I'm like, cool with me.
Yeah.
It's like I'm gonna keep using my old key. I'm gonna get these free upgrades from you guys.
It's like, how dare you show up in those unsightly rags?
That's
Here,
right.
Put this on.
That's right. How dare you come to this bowl? You are just filthy old rag man. I'm a ragamuffin, yes I am. But anyways, James, we have got off the rails right off the bat. But anyways, guys, if you hadn't noticed, we're gonna go back into nostalgia land today, and we are gonna be talking about one of our favorite PC games of all time, something that really got us into PC gaming, really, as kids, Age of Empires 2.
Yes, and this is an oldie and a goodie, and I think we played this one after Red Alert 2, if I remember right.
We did. So this was kind of the successor to our RTS fascination, as it were. I would consider it. I would almost say, would you think was it Red Alert and then Red Alert 2, and then we got into this one probably?
Red Alert 2, I think, was already out or coming out whenever we started playing it.
Yes.
So we only did one for a very short period of time.
Yes.
I think that we did 2, and then we played this.
Yes, and then I don't know if you guys really got into Red Alert 3 like I did. I think you guys kind of skipped over it and just moved on to something else.
We played a bit, but no, we didn't really get into it. After Age of Empires, we moved on to Rise of Nations.
So I would almost consider between Age of Empires and the Age of Empires franchise and StarCraft, those are like the two major RTSs that kind of like formed the genre for essentially the next couple of decades.
Yeah, I mean, Age of Empires is kind of like the Monopoly board game of the RTS world.
It really is.
I mean, it's the same core game, but you just put a facelift on it.
You really do.
There's the Age of Empires Lord of the Rings edition and the Age of Empires Star Wars edition. And
they really did. I mean, pretty much a lot of people really did rip off of it. I mean, essentially, like you said, we had like the one that I really got into with Sam, one of our friends, Age of the Empire at War was what it was. It was called Star Wars Empire at War. It was literally just Age of Empires Star Wars. That's all it was.
It was great. It came out for the prequel Star Wars movies.
Yep.
And there was a cheat code that could summon a Death Star.
That's right. And
which was the most important part.
I totally forgot about that. That's great. That's a good memory right there. I remember cheat codes, kids, because that's something you don't get a lot of nowadays. You kind of have to internalize it. But cheat codes were like a necessity to have back then, because if you like just got frustrated with something, you're like, I'm going to put this cheat code in, and you're just like, I have a Death Star now. I'm going to totally destroy this level. Yay.
Well, yeah, because we've talked about all the time we spent playing these games. You have to realize that we didn't play the missions at all.
No, we really didn't.
We just did like a single scenario map, like a versus, or just against the computer, and just messed around. Like I remember we would build vast shield walls.
Yes. Don't worry about building troops. We just like have walls upon like layers upon layers.
Like
of
walled
walls.
off the entire map.
Yeah, and eventually you just block the people in, and you'd have like one unit. You could afford one unit at that point. You just sit there behind the shields and shoot the other guys.
Yeah, it's like you don't build units. You build walls with towers and turrets closer and closer until there's no base left for the enemy.
I remember you trying to do that to me one time. We were playing a multiplayer game, and I just remember they what is he doing? I'm just like, and then that was a tactic we used on a couple other things when we played like co-ops type stuff.
It works great on low settings AI. It doesn't really work against a human.
No. Anybody, especially one with like barrel, just the slight amount of intelligence is like, what is he doing? I'm just gonna go around this thing. Look at the side where there's no wall at yet. So, but before we get into the deep like hole, the abyss, which is nostalgia at this point. So let's learn a little bit about what you've been up to, James. What have you been up to this week?
What have I been up to this week? Working mostly, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the Burning Crusade Classic has come out.
That's right.
And I'm getting ready to play that this week, hopefully. Yeah. And that is going to be fun. I've been playing through the Super Mario 3D World with my lovely wife, and we've been doing it in co-op, which has been great.
There you go.
And for the most part, co-op has been a nice kind of benefit.
Yeah.
But it's not as bad as like the Wii U Mario one where the co-op, definitely made things harder.
Yeah. It's just like, come on. And they're just standing there and you can't go any further.
There's a little more space on the screen, which is good.
Oh, my goodness.
It does kind of randomly pick the person who it's going to follow. Like, it's not always the first player who the screen follows. It's like whoever was most recently further ahead on the map. So when you're trying to double back to get something you missed, it can be a little frustrating. But it's a very fun Mario experience.
I can see that a little bit. I tried to play a little bit with one of my nephews. I kind of saw that a little bit, and he would just go like run off and kind of do his own thing. I'm just like, well, like the level's over here. Like we need to go this way. And he was just like, it would just randomly do that. Like sometimes it would pick him up and move him, and other times it would just like pick up and move me back towards him. And I'm just like, what is going on here? It made no sense sometimes.
But it's nice if you're just trying to casually play through and pick up some of the trickier stars that I imagine would be just ball-bustingly difficult on single player. With a multiplayer, buddy to kind of anchor you, you can try a few more times, and it's a little bit easier. It's
a little bit easier because there's definitely been a few times where I had to look it up on YouTube to figure out how. Like, I'm like, how do I get to this star? Like, this is super annoying. Like, why would they do this? And you have to kind of look it up, but it's still fun nonetheless. And I truly enjoy it. I'm going to hopefully go back and 100% once you guys get done with it. Like I said, I'm in no rush whatsoever to get back to that because there was a couple F-bombs dropped definitely while I was playing that game. So.
Well, and I've looked up some of this stuff to 100%. Like, did you know that there's a sticker for each character for finishing the level?
Yes.
Every level with that character?
I will not do that. That is not 100%ing. That is BS.
That is BS. Care. And, at the end, they give you another character so you can go back and do it all again. Like, no, I'm not doing that.
No. That's
I'm getting the stamps and I'm getting the stars, and I'll be satisfied with that.
That's 100% to me.
This is the Breath of the Wild with 900 Korok seeds again. It's like,
yes,
that's not
fun
anymore.
I will choose the cheap hobo version of me 100%. How about that? So,
yes.
But anyways, on my end, so I've been playing, actually, I know you saw me whenever you came downstairs. Because third wall breaking, guys, that's where our studio is. It's in a basement in my house, which is, dark and dank.
2 guys in a basement.
That's right. It's better than, no, I won't say that's bad. I'm not going to say that. It's a bad reference. Anyways, we'll move on from that. Anyways, so, but he saw me, I was playing Borderlands 3. I actually picked it up on Steam. And I don't know if it's still on sale, guys, if you want to check it out. I think it was like $26 for the complete edition or whatever it is. It's got most of the DLC. I think it's the first season expansion. So the one thing I hate about the new Borderlands is they have 2 season passes, James. 2.
Why?
Because they're jackasses. So the only good thing about the first season is that it has most of the content in it, or the downloadable content, the DLCs and stuff like that, or for like playable missions and things like the next DLC. They don't really have anything for it yet, so it's not really like I wasn't really like, oh, I want to go get that. They have like 1 DLC mission, but it's a bunch of like add-ons and like cosmetic bullshit. I'm like, okay, I won't buy that yet. I'm just gonna wait and hold off on it, and we'll go from there. But
I mean, maybe this makes me a boomer, but I understand buying a expansion. I understand buying a game, but this idea that we're going to release the game and then get all these little things with it is ridiculous. Like
it's basically microtransactions.
Well, yeah, it's like the game that this is one that just came out on Wii earlier this year. I don't know, on Switch earlier this year.
Yeah,
that I was really thinking about getting, and when I saw it, I just couldn't bring myself to buy it. Like the Fenris Rising one.
Yeah,
like it's supposed to be like a big open the world, like Breath of the Wild type thing. But like on the day the game released, on the literal day it released, they had a main game. They had 3 different expansion packs. They had a bunch of cosmetics, and then they had like $100 season pass to go with their $60 game. And I just took one look at that, and I'm like, nope.
Yeah, you can just flip right off.
I was looking for a vaguely amusing game to waste about 20 hours on, and I can tell that this is not the one for me.
Yep, that is exactly what I was thinking. So I kind of want to get there's another one. It's called Phoenix Rising.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of, the Phoenix Rising one.
Yeah, so it looked really cool, and I was like, I'm really excited. I was really excited to play it, but I was just like, I don't want to, like you said, I saw the same things.
It's like a Greek-inspired, it's supposed to be like irreverent, dumb humor. Perfect, right?
It kind of reminded me of like a dumbed-down, like slapstick version of Diablo 2, essentially, kind of thing, where you go around, you fight big baddies and things like that. And it looked really fun. I was like, this will be fun to play. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, so I'm in the same boat as you. I'm going to wait until they do like a complete edition. They're like, it's going to be discounted down. You wait a year. Such is the older gamer mentality, is like, I have time, I can wait a little bit. I have, my money is precious, and I don't want to pay $60 for a POS that's not 100% made all the way complete. So
and I don't necessarily need the AAA experience on everything anymore.
No, I don't.
And to be honest, the AAA games are losing some of their luster these days anyway.
Yeah, that is not wrong.
And still waiting on the PS5.
Yeah, that'll be a while. I was reading something the other day. You might even have to wait until like 2022 to get one, James.
Yeah, there's a global semiconductor shortage.
Yep.
And
well, the bright side is right now the only thing they've got out for it, basically, that's any good is Ratchet and Clank, a Rift Apart, which is pretty fun, actually.
Well, supposedly the Great Big Story one was supposed to be a really good one too.
Yeah, that's another. So they've got like 2 titles,
2 good ones. There's a Dark Souls remaster, but I could get Dark Souls on the PC for pennies. So
exactly, and that's
okay.
You're looking at. So like, I have a whole library on Steam to play still. I pay $15 a month for Xbox Game Pass for all these games that I haven't played yet. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm good for a long time.
That's fine.
I got things to preoccupy me until I can. I've got the $700 or $600 of what it was. I think it was $600 sitting in my bank account. It's set aside. I know I've got it.
You know what it's for. It'll be fine.
I'm good. So, anyways, talking about games that definitely don't cost very much anymore. If you want to go try and find them, Age of Empires 2.
Or actually, if you don't mind one more digression.
Digress, Jake. Please.
Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 is on Steam now too.
I will never buy that game. I'm not a tycoon kind of guy.
Or there's the Open Roller Coaster Tycoon for free, which is better.
Way better. I think I've seen you play that before. It's like basically there's a giant mod community came together and made it, right?
They rewrote the entire game like line for line
to bring it back, because for a long time the game just did not work on newer versions of Windows, and there wasn't a good workaround. But
that's such as
the tycoon games are some serious nostalgia.
Such is the power of coders, my friend. If they like something, they will go for it. That's why I love these kids nowadays. They will, even some of the older guys, the guys that just like, they will try to find something, they want to bring it back, and the company's like, oh, we're not going to make any money out of it. And they're like, find them, we're going to fix it ourselves and do it.
We'll bring it back. It'll be better. We'll have blackjack. Hookers.
It'll be great. Blackjack and hookers. I love it.
You know what? Forget the blackjack.
Forget the blackjack.
Futurama.
I missed Futurama. Futurama was great. That was a great show, and I'm so sad that it left, but it is what it is. So there's other things that preoccupy my time. So anyways, guys, so Age of Empires is a real-time strategy game developed by Ensemble Studios and published by Microsoft, and was released in 1999 for Windows and the Macintosh. I have to say Macintosh because that's what technically the Apple system was called.
That's what it was back then.
Back in it's not iOS or whatever it is now. It was Macintosh. It is the second game in the Age of Empires series, And this whole thing is actually set in medieval times, essentially. It's kind of that's the kind of the era that they chose. So, do you want to do a kind of a brief overview of? I mean, hopefully, most people know what RTS is. So, real-time strategy games.
Yeah, so real-time strategy games, like we talked about when we did our Red Alert video.
Yeah,
they are basically games where you take the role of a empire or a kingdom.
Yep.
Generally, there's some type of larger mission scenario going on, but for each match, you have your resources and you're trying to fight another group, usually to the death.
Yep.
You have resource gathering units, and they collect things like wood or gold or oil, depending on the game.
Mm-hmm.
You use this to build settlements where you can upgrade and make troops, and you use the troops to kill the other people.
Pretty basic.
Real simple.
Real simple. I love it. And this is the kind of thing that really made Warcraft kind of start.
Mm-hmm. It's called real time because before this, things like Risk and stuff were more turn-based, and so this is something which took place in real time. So hence real-time strategy.
Real-time strategy. So the nice thing about this though is they added whenever you had some older games I'll say Warcraft, like I was saying earlier, and even Red Alert, you only had maybe one or two factions, to choose from. This thing had so it diverged. It had base units that were pretty much the same, but then they had multiple civilizations. I'm talking
13, I think, right?
I believe it was 13, yes. So you can choose from 13 different civilizations to be, and they all had kind of a unique abilities.
They advantaged some units.
They usually had a specialty unit, or they usually had a historical figure attached to them where you could hire them and make them part of your army. But they also had little differences, certain ones would be better at, they'd have benefits towards the researching, technologies, or some would be better at gathering, things like that. It was small little differences that would make one civilization better at doing something than the other, which was a huge change for this, already set in stone genre, essentially. And the other thing they kind of added on to is they had multiple scenarios, multiple campaigns in there that went after basically the lifetime. They basically picked historical figures within each of these civilizations. So I remember if the base one they had is was the Scottish one where you had William Wallace. You remember that one? I had the big old broadsword, and that was this is baby's first campaign. Welcome. This is what you have to do. Click forward. They basically kind of walk you through the first couple of scenarios, and then you end up having your own little campaign. Usually the last couple of scenarios that you end up finding the big thing. But then they have ones go over Joan of Arc or Salamane. Is that Salamane?
Salome, probably.
I believe it was Middle Eastern. But they do things. They don't just center on European history. They do Middle Eastern, civilizations. They stick basically, but they stay within the European, Euro-Asian continent type stuff. Which it's very interesting. I really enjoyed that kind of thing. That was kind of my first kind of glimpse into medieval military history, essentially.
I don't think I ever played the campaign.
Oh my god!
Not even a little bit.
My old white guy was tingling back then. I was just it's it seems.
Well, you were always into the campaigns on these games, we were with Red Alert and now Age of Empires.
Well, I always wanted to figure out the best way to to figure out the fastest way to beat the campaign or get around or find all the little intricacies and things like that. And you guys were more let's build things and fight each other. And I'm that's okay. I'm whatever, I'll do it with you guys. This is fun.
It's what happens if 6 Colossuses attack a Death Star?
That's
what we want to do.
That is a good question, so. But so let me ask you this, James. So I know we played this for quite a bit of time. I thought we played this for a couple of years before any of the bigger games came out. Really, some of the clones, the Age of AOE clones. What do you remember most about this game? When do you remember first entering into this?
I honestly remember the Star Wars version the most.
Okay.
I remember the Death Star cheat codes. I remember they had a regenerating shield wall.
Yeah. And
they had the Gungan army, and there was a Empire army. What else do I remember?
But that's the kind of things that they took from AoE.
I remember it was all pretty much an exact AoE clone.
Yeah. They slapped
a different skin on it. It was exactly the same stuff.
They changed a few little wording things in there.
I remember it had multiplayer support. I remember it supported more than 2 people from multiplayer.
Yeah.
And did this one have online, or was it?
Did have
It
online.
had online. It
This
wasn't
was one
just IP to IP only like
Yeah.
Red Alert was.
This was one of the first ones where it had, that online thing. And I remember playing this a couple times on my computer. My dad getting pissed off because we tie up the phone lines trying to do this. And we played for a couple hours. Luckily, it was like the year after this came out, I think we actually finally got a dedicated phone, dedicated line for the internet. It wasn't like it was actual it was an internet line. There was like actual cable and things like that. I don't remember. It wasn't a coaxial cable. I don't remember what it was.
It wasn't cable internet or DSL.
I don't think it might have been DSL. It might have been DSL at the time because that was the very.
Because you guys lived in the Cape proper city, so you would have had DSL.
I'm pretty sure we had DSL at the time. That was the first time we got DSL because I remember we got DSL around 2000, 2001. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, because I didn't remember you guys having a second phone line.
No, we did not have a dedicated phone line.
That doesn't sound like something your dad would have done.
No, he would not have paid the money for that. But DSL was perfectly okay. Because my mom had to use it. She was using it for stuff for like that for work, and she was like, "Well, the kids need to have it for like school." And it was her excuse. That was her excuse. My dad was like, "Whatever, do computers." He's still like that. I had to teach him how to use. It was funny. Right before he retired, they moved him to like a safety inspector position or a safety coordinator position. He had to learn how to use Microsoft PowerPoint, James, and it was like pulling his teeth out. He hated it so much. I had to give him a class on how to do it. I love the man to death, but he's definitely technology is not his thing. So
this is something I found really interesting, though, is you get people who I know for a fact they know nothing about computers and they don't know the first thing about even like changing the settings on Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
But they know how to use their smartphones.
They do.
You get like these 60, 70-year-old retired people, and that's what they do. They sit on their couch and they use their smartphones, and they are iOS whizzes.
That's right.
They don't know anything else.
Nope. But the thing is, that's the one thing I was supposed to talk to my mom about that. Because, since they're getting rid of basically removing 3G networks, what little they have yet, and they're basically pushing everything to 5G. Well, my dad has a 3G phone. It's like a flip style, like rugby. It's like one of those rugged ones. So now they have to get him a smartphone. And he was just bitchy and whining about it the other day. And I love him to death, but he's just like, "Why do I gotta get one of them smartphones?" I was like, "Mom, get him an iPhone. They're user friendly. They love old people. They're easy to use. Like, you don't have to put apps on it. All you have to do is make sure he's got his thing where he can listen to his audiobooks on there if he wants, and make sure he can use like the Google Maps thing or the i.
Exactly.
That's all he needs to do.
Like,
it'll be fine.
There's no malware. There's no spyware on. Well, maybe spyware. No unsanctioned spyware, shall we say?
I use Steve Jobs for that. So
it's like that's the one like upside of the closed app store is you're not going to accidentally download something highly illegal.
I don't know what you're talking about, James. I've never done such like that, like an emulator like that. So I've never done that, ever.
The downside being you can't play, Pokemon Red and Blue on your phone, but,
It was so much fun. So many long nights, and I didn't have anything to play. And I was like, I'll just play this for a while. I totally I beat Blue because I played it so much, but it was great. Anyways, before we get into the deep stuff, so obviously, even though, like we were saying, even though the game was essentially the same as the first one, it used the same engine, similar code as the predecessor. It's called Age of Kings is what it's called technically. It took a year longer than expected to come out, and so they released kind of a middle ground one. I think it was Age of Empires: The Rise of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
They did that instead. And then that's whenever the year after that is whenever Age of Empires 2 came out. This is back in the day, like we've said before, guys. Most games they were like powerhouses. You literally had people working like 12, 14, 15-hour days, and they got these games out fast.
Well, the expectation was that these game studios and these game franchises had much shorter development times, and games were self-contained. There wasn't like an aftermarket for the games.
Are you saying they wouldn't come back and put out something? I don't say like a classic version of something, James?
No, that would be unheard of. So it's like these major studios, they were releasing big titles every year, or maybe a little bit more often than that.
Yeah.
And so Age of Empires 1, Age of Empires 2 might be 2 years later at the very most.
Yep. But now you have things that are like The Last of Us. You have The Last of Us, the game. The first one came out, I'm going to say 2005 2004 maybe. Maybe a little bit later than that, maybe 2006. And the newest one came out, last year or 2 years ago. No, it was maybe 3 years ago. Wow, it was even 3 years ago. It came out 3 years ago. And so that's almost a decade difference between, the originating title and the sequel. That was
unheard of.
That's unheard of. Like, if you told somebody about that back in the Atari days, they'd be like, well, why would you wait that long to try to get the money?
I mean, for like a PC RTS game, you'd make the game. Yep. If it was successful, the crew that worked on that first game starts immediately on an expansion pack using the same engine. And then your second crew starts on a new engine to make the new game.
Do you have hiccups, James?
A little bit. The T is quite strong.
That's sorry. James can't hold his tea.
Perish the thought. Better add some whiskey to it. That'll tone it down a little bit.
Calm your nerves, as it were. So obviously, like you said,
but there's also like less to the games too. I mean, they were what they were. They didn't have all this bloated bells and whistles stuff. Like the expectations of a AAA game is.
This is definitely us being old
different
man,
than it
get
is
off
now.
Our lawn kind of thing a little bit.
But, we're kind of getting curmudgeonly.
But it's okay, because it's our time frame. That's what we dealt with, because when you paid $30 or $40 for a game, or it was mostly $30 for a game,
you knew what you were getting.
And nowadays, you get these things like God forbid, Cyberpunk. I'll say Cyberpunk. Okay, you get something like that, and it's literally a heart garbage mess. I love some of my buddies at work that they swear, but they're like, oh, it's an okay game. I'm like, no, it's a POS. I'm like, they should have, if they would have just said, hey, we're not ready, give us 2 more years. Well, people would have understood. It was definitely that No Man's Sky kind of mentality.
Well, and here's the thing with these, No Man's Sky is another good example of this. Video games have gotten to this like too big to fail mentality where for a AAA title, by the time you've gotten all the people involved with it, all the art assets, all the stuff, I mean, they're sinking millions and millions of dollars. It's like a movie budget into these games. And then if they release and they flop, well, failure's not an option. So the game is going to stay on the market. They're going to keep messing with it until it becomes successful by attrition eventually.
They kind of like force it down your throats. It's kind of, it makes me so mad. But anyways, the only thing that this really would have in common with some of that stuff is they did release an expansion pack because it was so well received.
Oh yeah,
they did a kind of thing. They did a
expansion packs are easy for RTSs too.
Oh, easily. So
you put a dozen extra units in the game, make some more missions, and make the maps bigger, and it's an expansion.
Pretty much that's what they did.
Dead simple.
It was super simple. So this one they called it the Conquerors, is what they called it, and you can imagine what this is about. It had a South American twist on it with the conquistadors, James.
Oh my!
So it's a little bit.
I'm just thinking like you could never release that today.
No. They're like, and I can remember some of the missions that are like, you have to go into the forest and invade the Incan civilization. I'm like, well, this is gonna have some heavy undertones of like what's going on. I have to find this fountain of youth, and I'm like, wow, yeah. You probably want to re-edit some of this text on here, guys, and say, Cortez was a horrible person and just like enslaved these people and brought malaria and all this other fun stuff to the civilization of the Incan Empire.
I was thinking, well, where's the smallpox button? Because I know how to win this scenario.
Easily. Would you like a blanket and some beads? That's awful, but it's true. It's what we did.
It's like, I don't need to fight.
That's right. I have diseases on my side.
That's right.
So obviously this game was so well received that they eventually made a gold edition a few years later that had everything kind of bundled up, and it was even so well, like people still play it to this day so much they actually Microsoft actually allowed a upgraded high definition version of it, and it's called Age of Empires 2, the HD edition, which came out in 2013, and then later on they upgraded it even more. And it's called the Definitive Edition, which was basically a remaster in 2019, a few years ago. So, like I was saying, they had so many similar things to the other games, but like the team, being as successful as they were, they actually kept on going. So they ended up making, Age of Empires 3, which I don't know if did you ever play that one at all?
I touched on that one a little bit. At that point, I was into Rise of Nations.
Yeah.
Because they had
Rise of Nations is where one of the games where you saw like the advancing technologies in the RTS genre. They took ideas from like Civilization 2 and 3 and they incorporated that into like, advancing through the ages of your civilization. And they also had attrition mechanics and.
Which, to be fair, I think I kind of liked it a little more. The Rise of Nations a little bit. I actually have it on Steam, and I actually played it a couple times. It's definitely dated. Most of these games are dated.
They're dated now. By today's standards, it's dated.
Absolutely.
At the time, it was really cutting edge.
Yeah.
And for a group of friends playing mostly like in LAN parties, having like, the attritions and the country borders and, racing against technology, it made it all very, very exhilarating to play.
It was definitely a lot more fun as opposed to like this one where you didn't really know how anybody else was going. Because I remember in Rise of Nations, it would like give you these updates, like how, depending on where you went, like James just entered the information error. I'm like, son of a bitch, I'm still in the Stone Age. I'm like, how did you do that? I'm like, I'm going to die.
Yeah, and it's like, so-and-so developed an Apex technology, artificial intelligence. Like, well, that's the game.
Yeah, pretty much. And there are the giant robots. There they are. So, but yeah, so like I said, there are so many games. Can you think of any other games at all that might have come about because of this at all? Do you remember?
I'm trying to think what else. I mean, there is a ton of stuff in this genre. Age of Empires was definitely king. Command and Conquer was its own thing, and they were kind of contemporaries. Warcraft, which I think we've talked about before,
absolutely, was
another staple of the genre, and it had more of a storytelling and individual heroes. It took a different development track.
It definitely did.
Rome Total War. I
That's
think
a whole other series.
It's a whole other series itself, but it has more of like the historical interest type.
And that's more of so that took kind of the nice thing with that genre. They took more of the turn-based stuff on the overlay map, but they allowed you to play your battles in game.
Which the scenario mode for Rise of Nations did that, and
as well, yeah.
And there was a spin-off to Rise of Nations. It was like a mystical version of it. I can't remember what it's called now.
Talking about the Warhammer?
No, it wasn't Warhammer.
They do basically Rise of Warhammer. It's basically Warhammer Rise.
It's pretty much the Rise of Nations engine, but they adapted it to mystical stuff. Like there's like a fire and glass genie civilization, and there's like a dragon civilization.
I have to dig a little bit for that one.
It was fun. It was fun. I did a lot. I actually did play the campaign mode for that one.
Oh wow! Look at you.
Because it had like a risk style over map, and then you're doing each scenario. I might conquer this country, and they might conquer this one, and you get bonuses as you conquer more and more of the map.
Okay,
it's cool.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you're talking about right there. And there's so many other things that they just added to it along the way. And that's kind of the thing. It's like you look at some of these newer games that they've added. Basically, it's kind of like take this bedrock that AOE set about and was like, oh, these are lots of really good ideas. Like kind of like putting in the historical map, like having campaigns for each of the civilizations. Like you have that in the new StarCraft games. Like you have in StarCraft 2, you had campaign for each person, each race.
Yeah.
You had one for the Zergs, the humans, and the Protoss, and the Terrans. Sorry, Terrans, not the humans. I apologize.
Well, and that's classic Blizzard there too. The very cinematic, moving story missions.
But you do that but you look at any like modern RTS, they do that with a lot of things.
They do.
They do that, and they take a lot of these ideas from these older games, and they kind of build on them, which I love so much. Especially like the unique units and things like that.
Yeah.
There's actually this really fun game I saw the other day. It's kind of like a turn-based one, but it's a turn-based RPG, a turn-based strategy, and it's like a alternate future of Russia where you have these giant mechs. It's pretty cool. And there's legitimately there's a mech with two sickles for weapons along with some guns.
Huh.
It's pretty cool. I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me.
So is this Armored Core, or is this
it's kind of like Armored Core,
or is this giant robot anime type mechs?
It's more like Armored Core. It's not like Gundam Ring or like that. It's not nearly as powerful. It's more of a very slow methodical.
Okay, I can dig it. So it's like an Armored Core type thing.
It's pretty cool looking. So I kind of want to try that because we probably would have gotten there eventually with some of this stuff, but but especially with like some of these, they kind of tell people like, hey, you put your own little flair on these things and kind of make whatever game you want. Thus, like you said, you get the things like Star Wars, and you get the things like, they even had a Company of Heroes type one, which was kind of this kind of similar. It's like more of a military type one, more modern era. But yeah, is there anything else that really kind of stood out to you about this game that made you really kind of say, oh, hey, this was a pretty fun game?
No, the biggest thing for me was, like you said, the different factions, the multiplayer that would incorporate lots of people and being able to play online. That was really nice. And, that was really the biggest difference for me compared to something like Red Alert, where there was only 2 factions.
Yeah, and you could really only have like 2 people playing at once, and you could have to take your turn.
It was LAN only, and so it's as something a group of friends could play together, it was a big advancement. It
really was. So, and like I said, it was so like well received at the time that it left that impact that IG actually ranked this game as the 53rd best game. It ranked 53rd out of 100 best games of all time, 2005. And PC Gamer actually called it the 10th best PC game of all time, 2007. I don't know if it still sits there at 10th. It's definitely great. It definitely sits at probably, I would say it's definitely an 80. It definitely had room for improvement, seeing some of the new kind of things that they have nowadays for RTS and things like that. But it definitely holds a nostalgia feeling behind it. I don't know if I'll go back to it anytime soon, but
probably not. I mean, I think for me, it's a great historical interest. It's something we loved a lot.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same replayability of newer ones do with the technology trees and the different paths to victory. And there's just a lot more going on in the new games.
Let me ask you this. If you were to have, like, say, a younger cousin or a friend, a younger person that you know, whatever, would you recommend this to them at all?
Oh, yeah. Actually, my youngest brother-in-law played the hell out of the Lord of the Rings version of the Age of Empires, and
good for him.
And he did the Star Wars one. I think he did the original Age of Empires ones too. Yeah, I'm talking about Gabe. Yeah. he loved these things to death, and he just played the heck out of it.
Good for him.
So
I'm proud of him.
I think this is a great game for kids. It's there's a lot going on still in the Age of Empires, but it's not so much that it's totally overwhelming. I mean, I think it's still a great game.
Absolutely. So I would totally recommend this. Like I said, I kind of hoping like eventually one day maybe Lewis will want to play, or maybe Marcy will want to play this. I don't know. But I'm like even the nephews, I've kind of like they've come over and seen me play it a couple times. They've seen me kind of playing RTS, and they kind of look and like, well, what the heck is that? Like that's not on. We don't have that on our Xbox 360 that you gave us. It's an old broken down piece of junk that I have. So I'm like, hey, here, have this, kids. They're like, this isn't Lego Batman.
Yeah, I think this would be a good gateway game for kids.
Absolutely. I think it would be good. It's good a little bit. It has a little bit of history behind there. If be it a slanted history, but it's still good, I think. So
yeah.
Anyways, James, I want to say thanks for coming by and waxing a little bit nostalgia with me. Guys, if you liked what you heard of today, this is going to be a little bit shorter episode. We're doing some shorter episodes. I think it's just helping us out a little bit, time constraint wise, and making sure that we get enough material out there for you guys at the same time. And also it's a little bit easier on our family lives a little bit.
Yes.
So we might have a few shorter episodes here and there, but hopefully in the next coming months, we're going to ramp it back up maybe a little bit. But for now, we're just going to keep it kind of simple and easy. Maybe have a few shorter episodes. Like I know you guys probably noticed we had a shorter one over Earwig and the Witch last week, or a few weeks ago. But like I said, everybody, I just want to say that's kind of what we're going to be doing for a little while. And if you don't like the new format, just let me know. We'll try and get some people in here that have a little more time than we do. Maybe we'll pass on the reins. Who knows? But guys, if you like what you heard, hit us up on social media. Let us know. If you don't like what you heard, let us know. We want to know what you guys enjoy. You can always find us up on social media and find all of our old episodes at all your local podcasting apps, Spotify, Podbean, all those good guys, iTunes, whatever you want to look for. So again, James, I want to say thanks for sitting with me and talking with me.
Of course, it's been a blast.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
If you're interested in keeping up to date with new episodes on our channel, add us on any of your favorite podcasting apps, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Seriously Pointless Conversations. If you have questions or concerns, please email us at seriouslypointlessconvo gmail.com. We appreciate any feedback. Thank you for listening to our show.